you have to laugh or else you'd cry. Can we talk first of all about this migrant issue? Because one of the things about Donald Trump is, love him or hate him, in America he was democratically elected twice. Yes, he did lose 2020. He promised policies which are hugely popular, even outside his own voters, like policies on tackling the border control and deportations and tackling crime and things like that. Hugely and trans stuff, all that. Free speech. I'm sorry. He's really solid on some things. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. I agree with a lot of stuff, but coming to Britain at a time when this man has basically closed the border in Mexico, mass deportations, and you can see all this bleeding heart, hand-wringing stuff and these reports on BBC and Sky and everywhere else going, these poor migrants who are so scared of being deported. But then they go, yes, they've been here for 10 years in America illegally. Well, yeah. Well, then you're going to get deported. Suck it up, honey. No, I'm sorry. I've got no sympathy. I've just got no sympathy. He was able to do it. Yeah.
We could do it. But we're not doing it. Because do you not think the main conversation that we would really like to be having between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer today, when Keir Starmer, he'll be there at the banquet tonight, but also in Chequers tomorrow, should actually be about how the hell do you control your borders?
And I think Donald Trump will just turn around to him and say, you just need to get on with it. And I think that's the problem, is that we've got a Prime Minister who wants to sit there and think about things. Well, let's not. The one in, one out was always destined to fail. You've advertised it to everybody, so we're all watching, and you put journalists on a flight.
Well, they didn't put journalists on the flight. The journalists find out about the flights.
But we knew that those flights were going, so it didn't take a genius to work out which one it was, and you could put journalists on it. And the same with the Tory government in sending people to Rwanda. We sent more journalists to Rwanda than we ever sent migrants.
We sent more Home Secretaries to Rwanda.
We had a lot of those, didn't we?
Sent more. But it's a joke. The key thing is, it is possible. I mean, even Germany, which has been, come on in the waters, lovely under Angela Merkel, the current Chancellor in Germany, they have massively reduced the number of people arriving in their country. Now, it may be that as the politicians across Eastern Europe and Western Europe wake up and say, right, we're done with this, we're closing our borders, and the Schengen area is a disaster in terms of the border control, that actually we are going to just close the border. So that kind of helps solve the problem for us. But when you've got countries like France, which are not putting people up in 4-star hotels and not giving them, every possible thing in legal aid and translators and all of that, well, what a surprise it's worth coming to Britain.
But quite interestingly, with Trump creating his sort of alligator Alcatraz in Florida.
Love that.
And
as long as people are definitely, as long as there's a process, some of the legal process
it's not great.
But it's not great for Americans who
precisely. There's a lot to look at. But you had Keir Starmer and David Lammy and Yvette Cooper criticising what Donald Trump was doing. But now we hear they're looking to create camps in the United Kingdom on disused military sites, MOD sites, which are going to be the same thing as the Alcatraz.
Now, those MOD sites, barracks, perfectly acceptable for our fighting soldiers, men and women and their families. That's not a problem.
But not for...
There won't be good enough quality for... The human rights lawyers won't be happy about that. And I'm telling you right now, there's no way... Because it takes 2 years to process. And it doesn't matter how quickly they do it. Even if you've got one person being held for a month, the human rights lawyers will say you can't. You're basically holding people illegally. I'm telling you, you can't do any of this. Is the European Convention on Human Rights, is that the problem? Is it the Refugee Convention that's the problem? Is that the only answer, or do we need to do more? Or is there something that actually, where there's a will, there's a way? So to the extent that, for instance, you could have an Act of Parliament. Now, whether or not Prime Minister could get it through, not basically saying, you need to, when you look at Article 8?
Yes.
Right to family life. The one that basically says, you've got a right to do anything. That was about governments not interfering with their own citizens' lives.
Precisely.
And then the second paragraph, you have to look at the second paragraph, the benefits to the rest of society, to the criminality risk there. There's no basis on which anyone looking at Article 8, both paragraphs, that these lawyers and these judges should allow these people to stay, especially the criminals.
And I think that's the problem, is the interpretation of the law that is there is just being too loosely applied.
But it's not, people say interpretation is not, it's completely turning it on its head.
And this is what the legal profession is doing, and that's my point. So the actual article itself, and you're right, there is a second paragraph that everybody misses out, and it's not very long, so I don't know why they do that.
But that is being taken over by the thoughts and wishes of a judiciary who have a very different view to the rest of us. And that's what needs to stop.
But isn't that the main thing is, those people have a very different view of the rest. They genuinely do think that there's no such thing as an illegal. Everyone has a right to live wherever they want. They genuinely think that, okay, as long as they, I mean, they wouldn't have these people babysitting their own kids.
I don't want them staying next door to them.
That's something. Like, if you're happy to have these people in the country, have them babysit your kid for the weekend. Off you go. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the reality. These people, this whole bleeding heart, hand-wringing liberal nonsense, it's all very well as long as it affects other people. And then when people say, well, I'm sorry, a girl's been sexually assaulted or a girl's been raped or something, or people don't feel comfortable walking past this hotel, well, then you can just call them all far right and bigoted, but it's not happening in their street because they're very international. They love the deli at the end of the road, and there's this lovely family from Eritrea at their daughter's school. Brilliant. Well, that's brilliant. And maybe they came here legally, so that's fine. But I'm sorry, they don't live in the real world, these people. And when they do see the real world, they just go, oh, I didn't see it, I didn't see it. And these are the people who hang around with Keir Starmer and hang around with the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary. They live at a completely different sort of manosphere from us. They just don't, whatever word I'm trying to look at, they don't live with the rest of us. Even though they live in North London like I do, I can see the reality. I'm not blind to it. They are willfully blind to the reality.
Well, they are, because they've never had to interact with it, deal with it and see the consequences of it, because they live behind security gates, their children go to a nice school.
Even if they go to a state school, they go to the right state school.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they're not coming in contact with it. And somebody in the deli down the road, or somebody who has a nanny of a different nationality, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
You're not in inner city, Manchester, Birmingham, Rochdale, wherever it may be.
Where the impact is felt.
And where you
but
can
in
see
my area, the only school, when we looked at schools for my daughter, the only school that we could guarantee getting her into, because all the schools that were half decent, were C of E, but you had to have gone to church since word go, or live within basically sight of the gates, which we didn't. And I thought, of course we're going to send our kids to the local states primary. Didn't occur to me. That's what I'd done. Didn't occur to me. And then the only one we could guarantee getting her into was a school which the Ofsted report said 75% of the children arrive speaking only Somali. Not Somali as a second language or first language, speaking only Somali. And I thought, my kid's going to be a teaching assistant at this school. She was already reading and writing at 4. There's no way my daughter is going to get any teaching where the teacher is going to be concentrating on that. And I'm not entirely sure that these mums are going to be my big busy mates in the next few years, in terms of, like, they don't want to go for a glass of wine after the school event. I mean, I'm just saying, I sent my kid to school. I sent my kid to school in North London. I didn't send her to Somalia for school.
Yes.
No, it's okay. No, there'll be people who you put that on video. I'm a racist then. No, couldn't. I went to a school where I was only one of 3 white kids in a black school in St. Louis in America when I was a kid. No issue for my parents. No issue for me. Didn't care. So everyone spoke English.
Yes.
All signed into the same culture, the same language. Wasn't not remotely an issue at all. Couldn't care less about your skin colour. But I do care if your kids don't speak English when they start school. Yeah,
because you know that the resources are going to be going to those kids rather than being fairly attributed to all the rest.
It's just that simple, isn't it? I want to also come back to the issue of Israel, because we know there's a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister to sort of raise the issue of Israel and Gaza. And basically, is it pro-Palestinian or is it just anti-Israel? A lot of this from the Labour backbenches, especially after this absurd UN report on genocide, because it's the latest claim that that genocide is being committed by Israel in Gaza. I mean, despite all civilian deaths are terrible, but in terms of no other country in the world, when committing war against an enemy that has attacked them, has ever managed to keep the rates of civilian deaths so low by a huge factor than Israel has. No other country gives the warnings that they give, and then they're told off. Oh, you're forcing people out of their homes. Well, we're going to bomb their homes because that's where the enemy is hiding out, using them as a human shield. So we're not allowed to bomb them with the people in the buildings, and we get the people out of the buildings to save their lives. We're not allowed to do that. Israel's going, well, what are we allowed to do then?
And I think that, I mean, therein lies the problem. And also we're getting the Hamas figures, you know, the Hamas-run health ministry figures. So we can't verify those. They vary from week to week as to how many they are. And also I think people are very quick to bandy around the word genocide without actually thinking what it means.
Well, no, what it means. A, it has to be intent, and B, if Israel wanted to commit genocide in Gaza, they could have done so many times over the last 2 years, and they haven't. They've gone out of their way to try not to. We know they've got precision weaponry. We know they've got huge weaponry. We know about their ability. They've got a mass conscription army. They're able to do so.
Yes.
The population of Gaza has gone up since October the 7th, 2023. I mean, there's some basic facts, like the simple fact that this is a fact, more bombs have been dropped on Gaza by the IDF than people have died. Does that suggest to you indiscriminate killing of civilians, targeted civilians? But this UN report, absolutely, these people are nonsense. This UN report, they've accused Israel of genocide. They literally don't mention the 7th of October attack by Hamas. They basically just talk about how basically Israel attacked Gaza on October the 7th. I mean, they genuinely. The Hamas don't get a mention until the 8th page, and that's only in the context of Israeli claims and statements. They query whether the tunnels don't get mentioned. The fact that there is a London Underground of tunnels, that's the reason why it's hard to reach these terrorists. There's only mentioned in the literally one mention of tunnel in the entire report is to question the existence of the tunnel under the European hospital where Mohammed Sinwar's body was actually discovered. We've seen footage of the tunnel.
Yes.
They question whether it even exists. They don't mention that Hamas took hostages. But they accuse Israel of taking the Palestinian people hostage. The first mention of the word is 27 pages in. 72 pages. They don't mention anything about Hamas having 40,000 enemy combatants. I say only one mention of the tunnel in 43,000 words. I mean, the idea that this is a serious report is an absolute joke. I mean, it's an absolute joke.
And it makes you wonder who got them to write that.
Well, no one got them to write it. It's what their view is. But this gets taken with the UN report on genocide, and then the politicians and the NGOs and the charities all claim it. Look, I went to Israel last week. I was within 700 metres of the Gazan border. You could see and hear warfare. I mean, what the hell was that? You know, we had a security guard on with a Glock who'd been in the IDF. A couple of days we had two men with Glocks. This is a country that is at war. Yeah. When you arrive, the first thing at the airport at Israel is you see signs showing where the latest shelter is. You have to download an app so the Home Command Force can inform you if there's a bomb attack likely to hit where you are. You have to put your location in. You know, it's a real, we went to, sites of bombs in Tel Aviv. It's a real and present danger for these people, but they've got the Iron Dome. But the thing that most people are talking about, is just they didn't choose this. They didn't choose this, and yet they're being accused of something they didn't do and haven't done. And I'm not being paid shekels by the Israeli government. I mean, it's just such a clear battle between good and evil at this point. I'm flabbergasted on a daily basis how many people who I think are good people don't see that.
But how can a report also from something like the UN not mention what happened on October the 7th to start this?
Well,
why is that? I mean, that we know what happened. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. Should we talk about Charlie Kirk? Absolutely shocking murder of Charlie Kirk. The footage just absolutely shocking. It's extraordinary. I mean, that other people didn't die as well. I mean, again, we saw when Donald Trump's that first assassination attempt where the bullet hit his ear. People often forget. A man did die. Another shot. It wasn't only shot the first. A man did die as a result of that. But the suspect, Tyler Robinson, made his first court appearance in an anti-suicide vest. So you can't rip the material because he's talked about to his parents he wanted to die. Lots of question marks about his motive. He's not cooperating. He hasn't got a lawyer apparently yet, but he's been charged with obviously the murder, but also trying to tamper with evidence and putting other people at risk, including and the crime, shooting, where children are present because there were children in the audience at that Utah University campus. But totally unemotional. it is extraordinary that his parents went, his mum recognised him from the suspect video that was put out by the police, and his father spoke to him. He confessed. He allegedly, and then they got a family member, a family friend to go to the police about it. It is extraordinary though. Again, apparently he had been radicalised online. At home, he was now in a relationship with his roommate, who is people are saying he's a male transitioning to a female. You can't transition from male to a female. He's a man who is identifying as a woman, but isn't a woman. But and so he was very big on trans rights and gay rights and all of that, and he believed, quite wrongly, that Charlie Kirk was against gay rights. He's very clear on camera as supporting gay rights, and the trans issue. But what's interesting about this to me, especially in the week that we saw, those Emmy Awards for adolescence, the drama, that was about a young man being radicalised at home on his computer. This appears to be what's happened to Tyler Robinson.
It's really quite interesting that you look at the family background, and it is, from all intents and purposes, a relatively normal upbringing.
They're good people. They turned him in. They're good people.
They did, and that's got to be really hard. And as a parent, and you'll appreciate this.
Do you think you would?
I like to think I would, but of course I don't think you ever know until you're in that position. How hard would that be, knowing that you're going to turn your child in who's
now facing the death
penalty? That's a really tough call. And there was I saw a piece from the father who just believed that fundamentally you have to do the right thing in life, and fair play to him. Yep. Absolutely fair play to him.
I think they probably would have caught him anyway.
I think they would have done, but I think that we ought to give the parents a little bit of praise for that, because they have done the right thing. Absolutely. Because what the child has done is awful.
Absolutely. Do you think they should have gone for the death penalty? I mean, that is in Utah the death penalty is available. I don't. I mean, in cases like this, it seems to me it's pretty clear cut. But I mean, I don't approve of the state penalty, but the death penalty. But if it's the law in that state, democratically supported,
I think that if that is what is open to you as the prosecutor to go for, then yes, you should. I'm not a fan of the death penalty. I don't like it. I don't want to see it introduced over here, and I don't like to see it in the States. But if that's the system you're dealing with, I can understand why you would go for it.
I mean, it seems to me there's something ironic about putting him in a suicide vest to prevent him killing himself when you're pushing for him to be killed by the state. There's something that just doesn't sit right on that. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on all the conversations we've just had. It would be great to hear from you and what you have to say. Of course, we have another big criminal case going on, well, non-criminal case. Madeleine McCann, the chief suspect, which the German and British police now think was responsible for the abduction and murder of Madeleine McCann. We can only call him on air, we can call him Christian B, because of an absurd German law, but there we are. We all know his surname anyway, but he has now been released from prison. So good to know a rapist and paedophile back on the streets and able to travel freely. Oh, good. I mean, we really are in very strange times, and especially with things he's been convicted of. I just do not understand any system, and we're worse than Germany, where you get out of prison ever again. The crimes he's admitted to, the crimes he's been found guilty of, bye-bye, you're out in a coffin, nothing to discuss. But that's just me being old-fashioned, I know.